Welcome, everybody, to the Ultimate Advisors Resource Podcast. I'm Jordan Pence, president of Advisors Resource Company, and we at Advisors Resource Company help advisors like you write more life and annuity business. Today, I've got Madeline Nelson, our marketing director here, and we've got a talked about topic that we're going to recover.
Yes, we are.
That is the Kyle Busch Pacific Life lawsuits and all of these claims of fraud and all of this other stuff about it. But I think the first thing is we can talk about this update.
Right. Well, can you kind of lay out for someone who maybe isn't up to speed kind of the basis of it? Because it started as one thing and now it's kind of evolved. So can you kind of give a really quick overview?
The overview is that Kyle Busch and his wife, Samantha, I think is her name.
Yeah, Samantha.
They bought a couple of Pacific Life IULs and they put in millions of dollars into these policies. And essentially, they're suing the agent and Pacific Life because the cash values are now dramatically less than, the $10 million that they've put in. And so the headline is, IUL fraud or IUL scam, cost Kyle Busch $9 million. And so that's kind of the basis of it. They did a big public TikTok and things like that. And they're obviously upset. I would be upset too if I was them. I mean, right. I think they actually did get ripped off in this scenario. And the question is, how did that happen? And a lot of pundits out there are talking about IUL bad, insurance not a good strategy. Well, that's not really the case. And what we wanted to talk about here today is how to avoid ending up like Kyle Busch. I mean, many of your clients out there probably don't have $10 million to put into a life insurance policy, but they might have $100,000 or even $1 million that they want to put into an IUL. And so how do they avoid ending up with essentially, 2 cents on the dollar, or it's actually 20 cents on the dollar, but
don't get Kyle Busch.
Yeah, don't get Kyle Busch. So now this actually, I just got this article. We got it from
Insurance News Net.
Yeah, Insurance Net News.
I'll link it in the description below.
We'll link it in the description.
It came out yesterday, so this is pretty fresh.
Yeah, so basically the lawyers, Kyle Busch's lawyers, have amended the lawsuit and are really going after Pacific Life. Now, to be fair, Pacific Life probably has a lot more money than the agent does, but I'll leave that alone. But they're saying that Pacific Life's distribution, their sales distribution, really pushed the design choices, specifically in the replacement, and specifically the use of basically 100% base commission or base coverage, which effectively boosted the target premium up beyond what is ordinary or customary for this type of policy. And target premium, in case you don't know, is effectively how the agent gets compensated and how the sales distribution staff gets compensated and so forth. Everything is measured on target premium, and target premiums effectively have a direct correlation with the internal costs of the policy. And furthermore, in general, outside of Pac Life, target premiums are directly correlated with the death benefit. So I think that is what's maybe changed, but inside this lawsuit, there's a lot to unpack. I mean, they did do a internal exchange, which was commissionable.
Right, this internal 1035 exchange. Reset commission and fees while presenting the transaction policy as a policy improvement.
And what the new or the amended lawsuit is stating is that the sales staff or the distribution folks at Pacific Life were complicit in this. In fact, they recommended it and were really pushing it. So this is all alleged. We don't have the response from Pacific Life or anything like that, but I thought this was an interesting development, to say the least.
Yeah, well, they declined to comment on that and just kind of said the same generic thing that they said before.
Exactly, which you would expect. I mean,
Right.
if they're in a lawsuit, they're not going to actively comment on an ongoing lawsuit.
Right, exactly. So I guess also it said Kyle Busch was assured that by contributing $1 million annually for 5 years, that he could withdraw it $800,000 per year starting at age 52. So
Which,
what a nice promise.
yeah, which was on an illustration and was projected performance. And the fact of the matter is, if you go back to our original podcast, you'll see this. One of the reasons that they would have never obtained that is because all of the money was in the fixed account.
Okay, I think it said earlier like it wasn't even in the market, it was in like the Pac Life account, so that's why it couldn't grow with the market.
Exactly. It wasn't in the index, it was in the fixed account, which, if you don't know, the fixed account is just the account that's going to earn a fixed interest rate. At the time, it was probably below 3%. I don't remember it specifically. I know we talked about it before, but it was a very low interest rate. And furthermore, you had a lot of other factors that are dragging this policy down. But I think really the fatal flaw was the fact that it was in the fixed account rather than the index account. And that's probably going to be Pacific Life's argument against, Kyle Busch's claims. And they're either going to throw the agent under the bus, or they're going to say, look, the client signed off on it being in the fixed account. And so what are we going to do? The client wanted it in the fixed account. And that'll probably be that. This is total speculation, but this is just what I think is going to end up happening.
Right. Well,
so
I guess you want to get more into the questions.
Yeah, how do you avoid being like Kyle Busch?
Yeah.
Yes.
So, I guess this is kind of like on a larger scale, but where do advisors start to get into trouble with this sort of thing? With, they kind of use misleading terminology and other things like that. Can you kind of explain the red flags?
I think there's two things that first off, there's product design, right? There's the design.
Right.
Pacific Life, I don't like how their product is designed. I wouldn't buy it myself. I wouldn't promote it. It doesn't mean it's a bad product. It's just very expensive. They have a lot of complicated features in it. And they have this dialable commission component, which I think is not great. But in general, if you're working with a reputable company, which again, I'm not going to dog on Pacific Life. We've got plenty of other reputable companies that we work with. But if you're working with a reputable company and you're using a minimum non-MEC death benefit with an increasing death benefit option, which is also known as option B or option 2, and the client, at least for the first 3 to 5 years, is planning to put in at a minimum 2 times the target premium amount, then the client will succeed. So if you're designing this for your client, or if you're even buying one of these out there, you want to make sure that your quote, if you're going to use it for cash value accumulation, you want to make sure that you're quote unquote overfunding it. And that's insurance jargon for putting as close to the maximum premium as possible. And if you put more premiums in and the death benefit remains the same, you're essentially making the cost as a percentage of the cash value that you have less. And how I can explain that is, if the costs are roughly if the costs are roughly $1 and you put in $100, that's 1%. Right. If you keep the cost the same and you only put in $50, now it's 2%. $1 of 50 is 2%. If you only put in $25, now you've made the cost, 4%.
Okay.
So the point of all of that is just simply to say, the more money you put in, or the more premiums you put in, and the closer you get to the max that you're allowed to put in and still not create a MEC, the more likely you are to succeed and the more likely you are to grow the cash values.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in the Kyle Busch case, the premiums, and this is according to Bobby Samuelson's article, you can Google Bobby Samuelson's article, but according to Bobby Samuelson's article, the target premium was equivalent to the premiums that Kyle Busch was paying in the policy.
Okay.
So
no overfunding at all.
No overfunding at all. He was putting in target premium, which, by the way, maximized the commission to the agent. Mm-hmm. So if I was a client or an advisor out there and I was questioning maybe what I was going to do with the client, I would make sure that at a minimum or at a maximum, I guess I should say, the target premium was half of the overall premium. So in other words, if I was putting in 10,000, target premium should be 5,000 or less.
Okay.
If you're doing that, you'll probably succeed.
All right, great. I guess my next question is, how do AG 49 leverage in bonuses distort illustrations?
Oh my gosh. I have this conversation with people all the time, and it's not the agent's fault. It's not the carrier's fault. I think it's the fault of our industry in general. We slap an illustration down in front of people and we say, look, this is how it works. Doesn't it look great? Mm-hmm. This number's the biggest number out of all 5 of these. AG 49, it's made the illustrations more conservative in some aspects, but in other aspects, it's making them more aggressive. So when we do our top 10 IUL, which I think we're going to do it probably in the next, in a couple weeks, I'll go into this in greater detail. But the problem is carriers have put in guaranteed bonuses, and I use quotes in case you're listening to this, on the guaranteed part of the bonuses, because while the bonuses are guaranteed, there's other non-guaranteed elements in the policy that they can shift. Yeah. But the point of these bonuses is AG 49A, AG 49B, whatever we're at now, required that the loan rate be only or within 50 basis points of the gross rate of return. So what that means is by regulation, you're only allowed to show a spread of 0.5%. So when you take a loan out of an IUL, if you take an indexed or variable loan, the money stays in the variable in the index, and they charge you a nominal rate, and that could be whatever it is, 5% usually right now. Mm-hmm. Well, because of AG 49, the spread, the difference between the loan rate and the gross rate of return, is only allowed to be 0.5%. So in other words, the loan rate, if you're running at 7%, let's say, the portion that's loaned out can only earn 5.5% if the loan rate's 5%. Okay, so with that being said, a lot of carriers say, okay, fine, that's great. But then they add a bonus. So like the highest illustrating income is going to be like a North American or Allianz if you use the bonus accounts and things like that. And all they're doing is they're using the bonus to get the loan spread up. Mm-hmm. So he who has the highest loan spread is going to show the highest amount of income. It's a real problem.
Yeah.
I'm not asking for more regulation. I'm asking for agents to understand that fact. Now, a North American is probably going to illustrate more towards the average actual because it has that extra 2% loan spread. But a company that doesn't have that built into their illustration is just showing a much more conservative illustration. See what I'm saying? Because their loan spread's only 50 basis points. And so that's the problem with comparing illustrations. We got to get out of that habit. Talk to somebody like us. We understand how these policies work. We understand where the pitfalls are and why illustration X looks so much better than illustration Y. Yeah. You've got to dig into it if you're actually going to be proposing this. And if you don't have the time or if you don't want to dig into it, lean on somebody who actually knows, because just calling up a BGA and saying, who has the highest income for this age? Oh, it's this company. That is, it's so much more nuance than that. And you should not be doing that. You should really think about, well, why is that? If that company has the lowest cash values, like maybe an F&G out there, I won't harp on that too much. How do they have the highest income?
Right.
That doesn't make any sense. So
Right.
I'll get off my high horse on that.
That's
one.
okay. No, that makes sense. There's a lot of different factors that go into it. You just can't look at that one number.
Yeah, you can't just say, oh, this has the best illustration. And that's what happened with Kyle Busch. Pac Life probably shows the highest income because they have bonuses, multipliers, etc. And they show the highest income. Well, that means they must be the best. No, not necessarily. Now, again, I'm not saying Pac Life's product is the worst. In this specific case, the agent and maybe Pac Life sales encouraged it to be heavily agent-based comp.
Yeah.
So
I gotcha. So can you talk a little bit about stress testing the accumulation?
I think the biggest importance on this is you got to run it at a reasonable rate of return. Mm-hmm. So you should know what, the best 20-year period looks like, the worst 20-year period, and the median 20-year period looks like based on the indexes. Mm-hmm. But I think furthermore, you've got to not use the bonus indexes, use the ones without the bonus when you illustrate it, and give a realistic projection. Yeah. It's not going to be the best projection. It's not going to be the highest income. And you've got to tell the client, hey, these are conservative numbers, and we want to show you something that's realistic, not something that's, maybe got a 50-50 shot. I want to show you 95% confidence. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I think that's very important. And again, I think you just need to be aware of the bonuses. Just like I was talking, you need to be aware of how they got to that number that they're at. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean. So I guess just like after this case, everyone is really weary of IULs. I think it's a scam. They don't trust them anymore. And so how can an advisor chat with their client about that? Because now their client's bringing these concerns to them.
If a client brings this up, I don't know that I would necessarily bring it up directly to them, but mm-hmm. I would. This saying that because Kyle Busch got, I'll say it ripped off from an IUL.
Yeah, he did.
Is like saying, and then making the implication that IULs or insurance is a ripoff from this is like saying, investing in the stock market is a scam because Bernie Madoff scammed some people. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
I see what you mean.
So it's like, that's my take on it, and that's how I would present it to them. Yeah. Because if structured properly, just like investments, if structured properly, your investment portfolio will grow over time and you'll make money and you'll do well. If you structure an IUL properly or really any insurance contract properly, you're going to end up with good results. And to say that because there's some bad actors that use this product to scam somebody, and scams may be a strong word, use this product to maximize their compensation. And arguably this isn't even as bad as Bernie Madoff, but I think that's a good example. Yeah. Just because there's some bad actors out there, and people have been taken advantage of, doesn't mean that the product is bad. It's just like, I can use a hammer to build a house, and I can also use it to hit you in the head. Yeah. So we shouldn't ban hammers. We should ban murder. Ban scamming. Don't ban a product.
That's a good way to put it. Like, don't ban the tool, ban how it's used.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, that makes sense. I guess with this case, nobody wanted this to happen. The agent didn't want them to have to owe $10 million or whatever. They wanted everyone to come out on top. And so
I don't I don't know. Again, we're somewhat speculating on some of these. This agent could have just been ignorant and just chose the wrong options at the recommendation of Pacific Life.
Right.
He could have also, it could have been, Pacific Life could have been recommending, hey, you should maybe take down that base coverage and make it grow more. But I think all of this could have been prevented if Pac Life would have maybe taken a different design. They allowed for the fact that the agent can adjust the target premium.
Was that the dial
That's
commission you talked about?
Exactly. That's the dialing between the base and the ART. And again, that was how they wanted to promote their product. I'm not going to judge them for that, but it does allow for some questions on agent comp. And I think Pacific Life has always been very aggressive on agent comp, i.e. paying agents a lot.
Yeah.
So whether that's right or wrong, that's up to them. That was their distribution strategy.
Yeah. I guess when could this have been caught? Like, we're so late now. This could have been caught way earlier and prevented, or at least have been less severe. So
I don't think we'd be talking about this if it wasn't in the fixed account.
Okay, that's the biggest issue.
If the money was in the index, I don't think we'd be talking about this.
Yeah. So I guess why wasn't it in the index? It's just what they signed off on. It was just a mistake.
We can only speculate. Yeah, I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me. It could have been a mistake. Client could have put it in there. Kyle Busch and his wife could have said, you know what, we think the market's going to tank. We want to put it in the fixed account.
Right. And then it didn't perform the way they were promised, even though they may have made changes, but that's just speculation.
I'm totally speculating. We don't know. If it was a mistake, I would have thought Pac Life would have settled. If it was a mistake on the agent or Pacific Life's.
But they're not settling because they're pretty sure they're not at fault.
Maybe not. I don't know. Yeah. Or maybe Kyle Busch didn't want to settle and he wanted to take this public.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, from his point of view, he wants to protect other families from
that is scammed, what he says. That is exactly what he says.
True. Like, no one wants to lose all that money, but it didn't have to be this way.
It'll be interesting to see how this plays out. There could be a lot of things. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah.
With that, more to come on this.
Yeah, definitely.
Hopefully it gets resolved in a I guess amicable manner. But
yeah. I mean, also, don't they do annual policy review? Couldn't they have seen this going downhill like a few years ago?
That's another thing. Like, okay, you had 1 year in the fixed account. That's not going to kill you. But if you do an annual review, all of a sudden, okay, well, wait a minute. We shouldn't have this in the fixed account, Kyle. We need to move this right to the index because the index is killing it.
$10 million later, here we are.
Yeah. So annual reviews, or maybe the client, it could have been, they tried to do annual reviews and they tried to get him to change this. And Kyle was too busy racing and he didn't want to deal with it. I mean, there's a lot of things that could have happened. Who knows?
Right.
Who knows? But I'll be interested to see how this plays out. Yeah. And hopefully it doesn't lead to more press around IUL bad. Right. Because that's not really the story here.
IUL good.
IUL good if you use it right, just like the hammer.
Yeah.
So don't hit somebody over the head with a hammer. Use it to build something. So
right, exactly. So, all right, thanks, Jordan. Well, I will link this article in the description along with the other, original articles. So people can kind of read it for themselves, and we will continue to keep everyone updated.
Let's do that. And I think also include our email address. And if anybody has an illustration that they want us to review to make sure that it is not going to Kyle Busch them, so to speak, please send that over and I'd be happy to review. I'll give you my quick opinion and we'll go from there.
All right. Thank you, Jordan.
Thank you.